Starting off hot here on the BWI Daily Edition. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. Welcome to Monday's show. Greg Pickel, our featured guest now going forward every Monday during wrestling season because the Nittany Lions are the number one ranked team in the nation. They're undefeated, and they had a big weekend. So, Greg, welcome. Hope you had a good weekend full of a bunch of different Penn State sports, but obviously with wrestling on Friday, a big focus for Penn State fans. So, how you doing? And give us what your thoughts are of the duel on Friday.
Yeah, T. Frank, happy Monday to you and everybody else. Another week underway. A week without any football on TV, unless I guess you count the Senior Bowl because we're in this lull here with the Super Bowl matchup being set, but obviously 2 weeks away. So that's going to be an interesting few days here for us football lovers. But yeah, it's a good time to start with wrestling. Penn State, another marquee match, another marquee win on the road, going to Iowa and beating the Hawkeyes in a 1-2 rankings matchup, 19-13 at Carver Hawkeye Arena. You know, there wasn't a ton that surprised me in this match, T. Frank. I think a lot of things went as expected. Penn State called a pretty decent break when Jesse Ibarra, not Drew Ayala, was the wrestler for Iowa at 125. Penn State picked up bonus points there. That was a huge deal in this match. Roman Bravo Young squeaked out a win over Austin DeSanto at 133. You know, you have Nick Lee winning at 141. Penn State got beat up in the middleweights, which was kind of what we expected. Not sure I saw Brady Berge losing by a major decision, which kind of put this thing in a little bit of doubt until Carter Starachi, Aaron Brooks, and Max Dean rolled along in the back half of the match to seal it for Penn State. So another good win. They're finding their form, of course. Some guys a little bit further along in that process than others. And, you know, again, I think if you listen to Cael Sanderson talk, which he is doing once a week now in addition to match days, when you listen to him talk, T. Frank, he's a pretty straight shooter, and he's a pretty straightforward guy, and he wants his wrestlers to be able to go out, score points, and be aggressive, even if you lose. And so I think we're starting to see more and more guys do that match in and match out on a consistent basis, and that's what is needed for this team as we get closer to March in the NCAA tournament.
Drew Hildebent really showed his value in that first part of the duel where Penn State got out to a 3-0 start, didn't he?
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, when Penn State had issues in its lineup, it went out and found guys to try and plug those holes. He was one of them. So, you know, when you look at the situation with Penn State's lineup, I think you feel pretty good now about 25, obviously the major decision there, which is basically opposite Iowa's third string 125-pounder because the first one, Spencer Lee, is out for the year. And then the second one, who was the backup, was out too. So, but, you know, you get the major points there that you need. Penn State fans should feel great about where they are. I know that they want to see more out of Bo Bartlett at 149. I know the decision is not settled at 157, even though I think we continue to see more and more from Terrell Barraclaw. And I know that, you know, at 165, Brady Berge getting majored was the surprise to a lot of people. But what I will say, T. Frank, is that by and large, for the most part, you're still not going to find a deeper lineup anywhere in the country. And that goes for both the starting 10 and the guys who are behind some of these wrestlers, like Michael Beard at 197. You know, Brandon Meredith is a very valuable part of this program. He can bump up or down to a number of different weight classes and help fill a void if needed, even though he's probably not going to win. So they have some guys doing a lot of nice things at this point. And again, it's all about continuing to improve, continuing to push the action, and continuing, I should say, to try and score points. And as long as you do that, you will end up with more nights like Friday, where Penn State really did a nice job of, again, securing not just the team race, but also a lot of individual bouts as well.
BWI Daily Edition. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. Greg Pickel with me. For the record, we record in the morning. So Greg getting his sea legs underneath him, that's entirely to be expected on a Monday morning for everybody. One thing I wanted to ask you about, speaking of, the reason I bring that up really is because Cael Sanderson, as you mentioned, talks later in the day on Monday. So maybe we'll have a little more clarity about this next question after he speaks. But is there an update on those middleweights that you just mentioned, as some of the issues that they have in there, or is that kind of clear and it's going to be what it's going to be going forward?
I think that's exactly right. I think it's going to be Brady Berge at 165. I think it's definitely going to be either Terrell Barraclaw or Joe Lee or Tony Negron, and probably Terrell Barraclaw is just going to be your guy moving forward here at 157. And then, you know, I don't see anyone on the roster who's going to overtake Bo Bartlett for the job at 149. So, yeah, you might not be getting all the results out of those weight classes that you would like or that you're hoping for, but I just don't see a whole lot of change coming, and I don't see a whole lot of adjustments being made from the way that group is set up now. So we'll see. I could be wrong. Time will tell. But, what I will say is that these guys know what they have to do. It's no secret. And Cael Sanderson and his staff know what they have to do and know how they need to improve and things like that. So, for Penn State, it's all about getting to a point where, again, you're scoring as many points as possible in every weight class to try and obviously pump up your total for the team race at the NCAA tournament, which is, about a month away at this point, maybe a little more than a month away. So that time is coming, and we'll see what Cael says, but I just don't know if I see any changes being made, T. Frank. I think we are where we are at this point.
And it is the number one team in the nation heading into the final stretch. So it's not like this is a poor unit. It's just when you have such good pieces and you have such dominant pieces, then it kind of throws into really everything else. So what's coming up this week for Penn State wrestling? What should fans be aware of over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com?
Yeah, so obviously an exciting and busy time of year for Penn State wrestling. It was one thing I'll say on the schedule part of it, T. Frank, is that it was a really nice break for Penn State to be able to go to Iowa, move to 14-0, and then be able to come back and just relax kind of a little bit over the weekend. Instead of having a match Friday and a match Sunday, it was just a Friday match. So that was good. This is not a one-match weekend, however. The Bryce Jordan Center match, an annual event this year at the Bryce Jordan Center. It's Ohio State coming to town at 7 o'clock on Friday night. And then on Sunday, Nebraska visits Rec Hall for a noon meet in State College. So, yeah, it's a busy time of year. There's only 3 dual matches left, though. And then before we know it, we will be in tournament time. So Penn State hoping to close out unbeaten, finish strong, and it has every reason to at this point in time. So we'll have coverage of those matches and more leading up to it.
We're kind of going through the weekend chronologically, totally in an unintentional way, but next thing up for the weekend in Penn State sports was Junior Day on Saturday, and it was a packed house from what I could tell from you and Ryan Snyder on Twitter as far as updating people on who's arriving in Happy Valley. What were your takeaways from Penn State's final Junior Day, which not only was packed house, but from what I understand from you guys is that it was also a talent-packed group, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was, T. Frank. If you look at the visitor list that Ryan compiled over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, I mean, it was a pretty star-studded group. I think we have to start with Vega Ioane, and hopefully we're pronouncing his name right, but if not, we'll get that fixed up here in due time. But the class of 2022 recruit was one of the players here as a senior, not a junior, of course, on Junior Day, and Penn State actually had some sophomores in town as well, and even a few freshmen. But, yeah, I think his official visit went well. I was able to catch up with him. I know we'll talk more about that here in a minute, but I really enjoyed getting to learn more about his time at Penn State, and he seemed to really enjoy Penn State. So will it be Lions? Will it be Washington? We'll have to wait and see. But, beyond that, the underclassmen group was outstanding. You got a commitment from the 2024 class to first for Penn State and Cooper Cousins, who just is a really solid player, T. Frank. Ryan told us he's at 6'5.5", 300 pounds now. I mean, he is one big dude at this point.
And he looks skinny on film. That's the part that blows me away, is he looks skinny on film.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, they have a lot to mold there and a lot to work with him. A really, really talented guy. And then when you look at the just overall 2023 group, T. Frank, outside of the couple offers that went out, and a few did go out during the weekend here, but it was just a star-studded list of guys with offers. They offered, and then they added to that. Amari Thomas is a receiver from Alabama that picked up an offer. Georgia athlete Colton Hood received an offer for the Nittany Lions. Those are 2 2023 guys, in addition to Ryan Manning, a Baltimore St. Francis receiver who added a Penn State offer as well. So, all told, productive day. Maybe not as many. I mean, if it was a good group, don't get me wrong. And let's not forget Jason Moore, the 5-star from DeMatha Catholic that did on Friday. Maybe not quite as top-heavy as we thought it was going to be, but still a really good day for Penn State. And some of these guys who have offers or are close to getting offers may not have on-3 rankings yet. They will get those down the road, however, and time will tell how that all works out. But, yeah, a good weekend for Penn State. I think they accomplished a lot.
Yeah, and for the record, Cooper Cousins is a 4-star, not ranked in On3 yet in 2024 because it's we're still working on 2023. I mean, come on. One of the things I want to point out, though, by the way, just the uniqueness of this weekend of Phil Troutwine having a prospect in 2022, 2023, and 2024 and getting commits from 2 of them. So that is a really interesting dynamic going on right there, and we'll get to that in just a second. But is there anything that stood out to you about those receivers, Ryan Manning from Baltimore or from Colton Hood, in either of those guys' situations with Penn State?
Not yet. I think they're just enjoying Penn State and what they're
Gotcha.
learning about Penn State and all of that. And so I think none of these guys are in a hurry to decide. And T. Frank, we may have talked about it last Monday, so this could be repetitive for some, but if not, I'll just make it short and just say that, the key to remember here is when a kid comes off a visit, especially when he gets an offer, everything's amazing. It was the best trip he could have ever possibly had in his entire life. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not telling any secrets here, but,
Yeah.
Point being, you're not going to hear anything bad, or you're not going to hear about the little nuances that could be a deal breaker in the recruitment down the road. You're going to hear all the splendid things that the kid got to enjoy while he was on campus. So, I think that's important to remember. It sounds great always after the visits, but time will tell how that actually works. I think Penn State did all it could to put themselves in a good position to get him down the road, that's for sure.
Yeah, and to your point, I'd say one of the interesting things I read this weekend from over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com was from Jason Moore, the top 50 prospect from McDonough. He's from McDonough, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
from McDonough. He was very, I'd say, diplomatic. He seems like a very well coached media person in his answers about the university and about what he was looking for. Very matter of fact about everything. And I know he spoke to Ryan over at the site, but did you get a sense from reading that anything about how he's feeling? A guy who is being pursued by 25 plus schools and has an offer from just about every top program in the nation. Did you get a sense from how he feels about that, or is that reading too much into what he was saying to Ryan?
Yeah, I think you're right on. I guess what I would say is I would not read into those answers as being bad or being negative for Penn State, is what I would say. Is that I would read into those answers more as that's just kind of how he is. Very matter of fact, very pragmatic, very not one to get overly excited or amped up or anything like that. He's just really excited about his recruitment and all the schools that are considering him. So, he comes from a program where they've had a lot of guys go to the college level. This is not, some schools, it's obviously, he might only have one FBS recruit ever, or maybe every few cycles or things like that. So it can be a little bit different. That's not the case though with this one. So yeah, I think that it's a good reminder that sometimes these quotes don't look glowing or as flowers and rainbows or whatever you want to call it that some others do. And I don't think you need to worry about whether or not that signals a disinterest or not as much of an interest in Penn State. I just think that tells you that that's just the way he's going to handle his recruitment. And we do think that he likes, Penn State at this point in time.
Still plenty of opportunities with spring practice openings and, of course, official visits later in the year. So if you want to read all of that stuff, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I've been saying this last week. I think it's very important for you to know that you can scroll down on YouTube videos while you're watching them. Like, even when I full screen them, I forget sometimes, and I'll scroll down. Like, oh, yeah, you can do that. So if you scroll down in this video, you scroll down past the little thingy, all the words there, the first link in this video, join on 3 for just $1. 12 months of access. You get all this information, plus my film breakdowns, plus his insider information when it comes to whatever sport we're covering that day, because Greg does all of it. And Ryan Snyder, Dave Eckert, and Nate Bauer, all at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, all for just $1. So sign up. Link is the first one in the description of the video. You can sign up, and we'll get going here on another thing that we talked about a little bit earlier. Vega Ioane coming all the way from Washington for this weekend, his official visit to Penn State. The 11th hour recruiting here because the National Signing Day is on Wednesday. What was your sense, because you talked to him this weekend about his recruiting and his visit, what was your sense of how he saw Penn State and what he felt about his visit?
Yeah, so I mean, I think his quotes, if you're able to check them out over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, I think his quotes were good, and it showed a clear interest in Penn State and Phil Troutwine and the coaching staff and the offense and the style that the Nittany Lions run. But I don't know, T. Frank, I'm so conflicted on this. His plan is to announce on National Signing Day, the traditional one, which is Wednesday, 8:45 a.m. Washington time, which means 11:45 here on the here on the East Coast. And as we sit here and talk on Monday, I don't know. I didn't get a sense that one school was ahead of the other. If you made me pick, I'd say maybe Penn State leads. He left Penn State with Penn State having a small lead, but let's see if that carries over 2 days from now when all those great feelings from the 48 hours of having the red carpet rolled out are over.
Right.
And, does the flight back from, State College to Washington, does it take a long time? And does that maybe make him think, I just want to be closer to home. This was great, but I want to stay close to home. That's what I think in the end will win or lose Penn State this recruitment. Does he want to stay close to home, or does he want to kind of branch out and start somewhere new on the East Coast? We'll see. I think Penn State did all it could here. They offered him late, and they still were able to get him to campus for an official, despite UCLA, which is closer to home, pushing really hard. Washington, I'm sure, where he was once committed to and visited 2 weekends ago, I'm sure they did not want him to visit Penn State. Obviously, that would have solved the recruitment for them if he did not. So we'll see. Ultimately, I would not be surprised if he picks Penn State, but I'm not calling it a guarantee by any stretch. We'll see here over the next couple of days. Again, he's not the most talkative guy, as most offensive linemen usually aren't. So that's not a huge surprise, but it's been hard to get a feel for where this thing stands. But what I would say, T. Frank, and I think this is stating the obvious, but he could have committed to Washington at any point, and he decided to come all the way across the country on the last weekend before he has to put pen to paper to see Penn State. So I think that obviously signals that the interest is very real.
Yeah, and just if you check out his profile at On3, Washington in the recruiting prediction machine does have a significant advantage here because of all the time that they put into recruiting him. This is obviously a special circumstance, but Penn State under a 5% chance. He is a 3-star prospect in the On3 consensus, but in On3's actual rankings, in-house rankings, he is a 4-star, 6'4", 280. He is not, I would say at this point, looking at him a tackle, but we could have that discussion down the road when it comes to seeing him up close and personal over time. One guy that does have that potential, by the way, is Cooper Cousins in the class of 2024. See, Penn State fans, we've talked about offensive linemen for half of this show. So Penn State is aware of the problem that they have on their hands. It's not a problem they got into quickly, and it's not one that they're going to get out of quickly, but Correct. They are addressing the issue. Cooper Cousins, what was your initial impression of the 2024 offensive lineman?
Well, obviously it's interesting when guys choose to commit because he could have taken more visits. He doesn't even have the chance to go on official visits for well over a year. So that kind of always raises my eyebrows a little bit when guys decide they're ready to end the recruitment that soon. Because as we saw with Mega Barnwell, you might get a little bit down the road here and then say to yourself, man, I wish I didn't commit so soon. I wish I could go take some visits or whatever, and then you might decommit, blah, blah, blah. That's one way to go about it. But I think Cooper Cousins is a PA guy. I think he loves Penn State. I don't think he wants to take visits. I don't think he wants to be wowed and all that kind of stuff. I just think he wants to play football and keep getting better at football and being the best offensive lineman he can be. So to me, T. Frank, I really like this pickup for Penn State. I think he's a guy who can help build future classes and help with the current one as well. So all in all, I think when you put all the pieces together, it's a really good get for Penn State.
Yeah, 6'5.5", as you mentioned earlier, 300 pounds. He has the reach to play tackle. He plays center right now for McDowell. So as a sophomore, that is pretty common. You're not going to be playing on the edge if you're a sophomore, especially if it's on a team that has a lot of good offensive linemen or even just veteran offensive linemen. But he picked Penn State over Pitt, Toledo, Kentucky, and I don't know if he has an Ohio State offer, but they were interested according to On3. So this feels like Penn State got a player before his commitment really took off is what we're talking about here, right?
I think that's a fair way of putting this. Absolutely. Yeah. I think he's the guy who would see, if he was going to take more visits, would see more interest, more offers, more opportunities, things like that. But, again, just from reading the interview he did with Ryan Snyder and having some interactions with, interviews he's done in the past, T. Frank, I really just get the sense that he's just not really into all that stuff. And some guys aren't. That's okay. He made up his mind. His family was happy with it. Penn State was happy with it. Let's get it done and let's keep moving. So I think that's the kind of player he is, the prospect he is, the person he is. And so for Penn State, I think those are the kind of guys you love to build your class around and love to get early commitments from. So, yeah, in my mind, just a tremendous get. here to kick off the class of 2024, and a guy that could be an anchor part of both this class and then the offensive line, of course, for years to come.
Yeah, and he actually committed. I was just thinking back on this. Committed even earlier than Alex Birchmeier did, who
Correct.
committed in the summer last year. So very early commitment in his process. But to your point, it doesn't seem like he's a guy that really cares all that much about it. And I think Phil Trautwein is a very important figure in all of this because all the guys that you and Ryan talked to over the weekend all mentioned technician. All mentioned, his ability to teach and to repeat and to teach and to repeat. So getting players with great skills, even going back to Anthony Donko, who committed for the class of 2023, all of them mentioned that about Phil Trautwein. So we're seeing some of those returns that Penn State fans wanted to see a little earlier from Trautwein in recruiting. Those, it's fair to say those are showing up. I understand that we're talking about 23 and 24, but this is tangible results, right?
Yes. Yeah, it is. And, but again, the biggest problem here, and you know as well as I do because you just said it, is that, yeah, these look great on paper, but when do they get here? That's
right.
The issue. 2023, 2024. And then you factor in the idea that guys typically don't play on the offensive line early, and fans, I think, have a hard time just getting excited about it. They can look at the tape and say, yeah, wow, this guy could be really good. This guy could lead our line, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's 2027.
Yeah, right. Exactly. When it's, when going into it, it's 2 or 3 or 4 years away, it just makes it a little bit hard to get excited about, no doubt.
Yeah, and 2027, by the way, still sounds like a sci-fi date in my head. I don't really relate to the idea that 2027 is just around the corner. Last thing, this is literally around the corner. Penn State still at work in the transfer portal, and they have a couple of players from North Texas they've offered. Twins, actually. So fill us in on Penn State's work over the weekend in the portal.
Yeah, Gabriel and Grayson Murphy is the other name. I almost forgot the other twin's name, but two mean defensive tackles defensive ends who played for the Mean Green Machine at North Texas, who are in the portal. Frank, here's the good news. Penn State was one of the schools they seemed to be really excited about when they got an offer. Here's the bad news. There were a lot of schools that offered, and they were excited about all of them. So Penn State's going to have its work cut out for it here. I think that's the biggest issue at this point is that, they can't host prospects now until March. When do these guys want to decide? Are they going to take visits? Are they not going to take visits? So that will be the challenge now is how do you get in front of them in a big enough way to stay relevant until March when you could possibly get them on campus. So we'll see. Penn State certainly can pitch the Arnold Ebiketie angle. That's going to be a great recruiting tool for the Lions now over the next couple of years. But again, these guys can go almost anywhere they want. So I wouldn't say even with Penn State having that in their pocket, it's going to be a shoo-in by any means.
Yeah, and just looking at the numbers, I have not yet seen their film because, as you just mentioned, they could go anywhere, and I don't want to waste my time. But just looking at the numbers from PFF, both have over a 90 pass rushing grade, 18 combined sacks. Grayson has 10, Gabriel has 8, 13 quarterback hits for Gabriel, and 7 for Grayson. So 20 combined hits and 18 sacks. That's a lot of production. I don't care if you're at North Texas or Toledo or wherever. Mm-hmm. The ability to get to the quarterback is the ability to get to the quarterback, and they seem to show that right off the bat. So that's going to be a big thing. This is more of what I was expecting from Penn State in the portal when finding pass rushers to offer. Guys with speed, guys that can get to the quarterback. And, I mean, that's what they need, right, Greg? We keep talking about Denai Dennis Sutton being one of the guys that's going to be factoring in. He's not getting here for a while. Also, He's a true freshman. I understand he's a 5-star. I'm very high on the hype train there. Yeah. But you want to have a little more assurance like this on your defensive line, right?
Yeah, there's no question. And I think the other thing that makes it important to remember, too, is just the fact that, this transfer portal stuff can take a long time to materialize. These guys were in the portal 3 days ago, I think. And just, but you have to offer almost immediately. That's the thing. To be in play, you have to be right. And look, I mean, this should not be a difficult offer, right? I mean, there shouldn't be a whole lot to think about here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this was an easy one for Penn State. But, again, these guys go in the portal at all times of the year, and you never know when someone's going to pop up or someone's are going to pop up that you really want. And these are the kind of guys Penn State needs, 100%, no question asked.
That'll do it today for the BWI Daily Edition, covering all kinds of ground with Greg Pickel here on the show. Greg, thanks so much for stopping by.
Enjoyed it as always, T. Frank. We'll talk soon.
Make sure you subscribe to Blue White Illustrated wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you like the video so that we can keep doing this, and subscribe to Blue White Illustrated on YouTube. I'm your host, Frank Carr. We'll be back tomorrow.